Picture yourself at work. You're sitting at your desk, standing at your workstation, you look around you, what do you see? Chances are lots of concrete, glass and steel. Too much grey. Our work environments in the city centres around them are monochrome, monotone and frankly dull and denuded of nature. I believe we'll enjoy our workplaces more and work more productively if they're greener. Greener our workplaces will be better for productivity, better for health and well-being of employees, and also, of course, better for the planet. Now, I've worked in some dodgy and frankly depressing workplaces in the past. I'm sure you have or you will. But I've also, luckily, worked in some amazing places like this. And when I'm around that greenery, whether in the building or outside, it lifts my spirits. And I know it gives loads more benefits. So over recent years, I've teamed up with city leaders, with property developers, with the green movement to try and make the places we live and work better. Better for people and better for nature. So what do I mean by greening the workplace? Well, of course, lots of nature, plants and green walls inside, but also loads of nature, trees, shrubs and ponds outside. Green roofs above us, wildflower meadows below. And I visited this building in Amsterdam a few years ago, and it used to be a post office building. It's been repurposed and it's lovely. So in an increasingly urban world, our contact with nature, which has been part of being human since forever, is diminishing. And it's often, of course, the most deprived communities who have the least connection. People on low incomes are much less likely to have access to green space, and black people are 4 times less likely than white people to have outside space at home. So my vision is that we should all be able to experience nature when you look out the window, step onto the terrace, walk out of the front door. So you shouldn't have to have a back garden or live in a leafy suburb or live near the countryside. You should make space for nature everywhere, for everyone. And most of us in the UK work in offices, I do, but this greening should not just be for people in offices. It should be for shop assistants, warehouse employees, nurses. And lots of people have to drive for their work, and it can be punishing. So their break from the motorway, well, it shouldn't be Greasy Ian's van in some lay-by. The places like Gloucester Services offer a green respite. I mean, who knew a motorway service station could be that lovely? So we want to get people back into work, happier and healthier and more productive. So let's make the work environment greener, yeah? Let's give them access to nature. The alternative doesn't exactly set the heart aflutter. So what's the evidence for this? Why we should green our workplaces? Well, I do think this area is under-researched given its importance. We can be pretty sure that the employees will be healthier, happier and more productive. So why would they be healthier? Well, it might surprise you that air pollution levels indoors are usually worse than air pollution outside, even in busy city centres. But guess what? Plants do a really good job of cleaning the air. And NASA did a study as part of the space program, famous study many years ago, and there's been studies since that absolutely prove that plants and the soil they sit in are really good at removing harmful toxins. There was a paper a couple of years ago published in The Lancet that concluded that people live longer if they live near green spaces, they have local green spaces. So we're seeing more and more buildings like this one, which I am lucky enough to work in occasionally, getting WELL certification that proves they meet high health and well-being standards. So employees will be healthier, they will also be happier, because access to nature has been found to improve sleep, relieve stress and reduce negative emotions. There's evidence that being in natural spaces, even just looking out of a window on a natural scene, calms us. 2014 University of California study found that being in front of attractive plants or just images of nature increases positive emotions and pro-social behaviours. There's some Harvard research in 2015 that found cognitive performance scores in participants working in green spaces was on average twice as high as people working in conventional environments. They got smarter with nature. There's been lots and lots of case studies from the World Green Business Council and others, and I think the message is getting through now to the industry. Even those kind of warehouses and distribution sheds that are famous or infamous for the terrible working conditions, the message is even getting through there. You know, the idea that keeping people in a metal shed without any natural light for shift after shift isn't good for attracting workers, for maintaining them, or for increasing their productivity. So we're seeing more warehouse developments like this one in the Netherlands that has greening inside and out. So greening the workplace, healthier, happier, more productive. And of course, nature benefits as you make more space for bugs, for birds, for biodiversity. So if greening buildings is so amazing and beneficial, why isn't it happening more? You know, we've got these half-empty offices, we've got the health and mental health crisis in this country, and also the ecological and climate emergencies unfolding around us. So why aren't we doing this everywhere? Well, there are barriers. I'm just going to talk to you about 5 of them. First, short-termism. Sometimes, you know, people just want to build cheaply and then others can pay the cost later. And I really hate that. And of course, people have pressure from clients for cheap spaces or pressure from shareholders and investors for returns. But this short-termism is going to hurt everybody because think about flooding. Flooding is going to affect lots of people. You can use green infrastructure to slow down the water and give it somewhere to soak away. We want healthy employees. Why aren't we encouraging active travel and cycling and walking? Our cities are going to get hotter and hotter because of climate change. So why aren't we investing in natural cooling with trees and greenery? So too often property developers focus on quick returns and walk away as soon as they've sold. Second barrier is about ongoing care. People don't want the hassle of maintenance. So living things need care. If you pour and lay concrete, you can largely forget about it, but greenery needs to be tended. Watering plants, watering plants and pruning branches, raking leaves. So that's why many developers and building managers prefer hard infrastructure. And the government still prefers to invest capital to build things, but not the money to maintain them over time. The third barrier is lack of concern about placemaking. So developers and planners think about the buildings, but not the spaces around them, not the context. So, you know, what do they think something like this does to the context around them? Has it framed the choices for people who have to live near there or work there? And greening our public realm also, of course, requires thinking about the spaces between buildings. Yeah, not just the buildings themselves. So what should they look like? Who should have access to them? And who should look after them? The fourth barrier is about promises not delivered. And sometimes because the industry just doesn't know how to do this stuff well, but often the industry promises the world in their glossy brochures and their slick CGI, and then, you know, little by little, you know, bit by bit, the greenery is chipped away. And what do we end up with? Well, plastic plants or dodgy astroturf. I mean, what even is that? Or, you know, they send Fred down to the local garden centre with a wad of cash and say, you know, buy some shrubs. And he buys the ones on special offer because, they're a bit, you know, looking a bit worse for their wear, and that's why they're on special offer. And, you know, 6 months later, you can get the picture, yeah? So promises not delivered. And the fifth one is nature offsetting. So sometimes developers do nature, but they do it somewhere else. So concrete and glass and steel here, and a lovely nature park somewhere over there. And of course, you know, that kind of off-site offsetting is great. It's really good to have that park or that nature reserve. But for me, it's not good enough because only a certain portion of the population can access, drive to, or feel at home in those special places. We should have nature everywhere for everyone, and that means where they live and work in cities. So you will, I hope, have a sense that I'm passionate about this agenda and making it happen. And thankfully, there are organisations that get this, that care about green infrastructure, that want to make amazing places, that think about long term and think about value in a wider sense. So I chair an organisation called Building with Nature. And we've set a set of standards, a framework for what good green infrastructure looks like. And planners and developers can use that to build good stuff, and we help them build it, and they have no excuse not to. And also work with property companies like Igloo Regeneration and the Crown Estate, and they're striving to bring the natural world into the built environment. So some examples. So in the heart of London, the Crown Estate and others have this scheme, Wild West End. Biodiversity corridors linking the great parks of London. And it stretches across biodiverse roofs, planters, green walls, pocket habitats on buildings. And it's encouraging birds, bees and bats back into this iconic part of London. And people get to experience nature in their everyday lives. So people, employees on Regent Street, can get away from the bustle down there, go up to the roof and tend a herb garden or the allotment. Igloo Regeneration developed Nottingham Science Park on a heavily contaminated waste tip. Instead of hard surfaces, they laid these interconnected wooden lily pads suspended above a wetland habitat with wildflower meadows. And the reed beds provide sustainable drainage. So people working on the science park can walk out, and the local community also can walk out into the nature reserve and enjoy the amazing landscape. And this is Forth Valley Royal Hospital. It's a Building with Nature scheme, and last year we gave it our national award because we love the way that it combined and used nature to support healing and healthy living. So visitor gardens welcome you at the entrance, courtyard gardens run through the buildings, and outside the restored locks and forests provide a sanctuary. Yeah? So this greening benefits both the patients, because they get better sooner, they get well quicker, but also the staff and visitors, because it encourages better mental and physical health. So the good news is there are some amazing things happening out there, but we do need to do more and faster. During the pandemic, I for one really valued access to local green spaces, particularly in lockdowns, and I think a lot of the population felt the same. As we're rethinking our cities and our work patterns post-pandemic, I think we should be creating mixed neighbourhoods in 15-minute cities, brim full of nature. So when you go out to work, why shouldn't you step out of your front door into greenness? Walk to your job along tree-lined streets. Work in a place full of plants. Eat your lunch in a pocket park. That's what the future should be like. But if we want to entice people back into the workplace, increase productivity and happiness, and do good for the planet, let's make our work environment greener. Let's make space for nature everywhere, for everyone. Thank you.